Lesson 4. On the Fear of God. In his Catholic epistle, St. John says, "Perfect love casts out fear." What does the saint mean by this? What does he mean by love and by fear? The prophet in the Psalms says, "O fear the Lord, you his saints." We find many similar sayings in the Holy Scriptures, but if the saints who have such perfect love for God also fear him, why is it said, "Perfect love casts out fear"? The saint wants to show us that there are two kinds of fear. One is introductory and the other one is perfect. The first is for beginners in the Christian life, whilst the other one is of the saints, of those who have been made perfect and have reached the point of divine love. Let me explain. Somebody does the will of God through his fear of hell. He, as we have said, is only a beginner. He is not struggling for good itself, but through fear of infliction. Another person follows God's will because he loves God himself, and specifically because he wants to please him. This person knows what is good. He knows what it means to be together with God. He has the true love, which the saints call perfect, and it is precisely this perfect love which leads him to perfect fear. He fears and keeps God's will, not because he fears the wounds, not because of hell, but as we have said, because he has tasted the sweetness of being with God. He is afraid of falling away and being deprived of this sweetness. This perfect fear, which is the result of perfect love, casts out introductory fear, and this is the reason why he says that perfect love casts out fear. It is impossible to reach perfect fear except through introductory fear. There are three states, as St. Basil says, by which we can please God. Either by fearing hell and therefore pleasing him, in which case we are in the state of a slave, or by fulfilling the commandments, or benefiting by seeking the profits that we will receive as reward, in which case we are in the state of wage laborers, or by pleasing God through the love of good, and in that case we are in the state of the sons of God. When a son matures, he does the Father's will, not because he is afraid of being beaten, nor because he expects a reward from him, but because he loves him, he respects him especially, and he is convinced that everything belonging to the Father is his own. The Son becomes worthy to hear, "You are no longer a slave, but a son, and if a son, then an heir of God through Christ." As we have said, he no longer fears God, i.e. introductory fear, but he loves God, as St. Anthony points out. "I am not afraid of God, but I love him." In the same way, when Abraham was on the point of sacrificing his son, the Lord said to him, "Now I know that you fear God." This signifies perfect fear, which comes from love. Why did he say, "Now I know"? Forgive me, but Abraham did so many things. He obeyed God, abandoned his possessions, and lived in a foreign country, and in a nation of idolaters, and there was not even a trace of godliness. Furthermore, he suffered the fearsome test of sacrificing his son. After all this, God said to him, "Now I know that you fear God," clearly meaning the perfect fear of the saints, who do not do God's will from the fear of hell, nor because they expect a reward, but they do it because they love him, as we have often said. They are afraid of doing anything against the will of the beloved. It is for this reason, he says, love casts out fear. They do not do God's will out of fear, but fear because of their love. This, then, is perfect fear. But as we have already said earlier, it is not possible to come to perfect fear without first acquiring introductory fear, for it is written that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. It also says that fear is the beginning and the end. By the term beginning is meant introductory fear, after which comes perfect fear, that of the saints. Introductory fear is that of our own situation. This protects the soul from evil, like metal plating. It says that by the fear of the Lord one departs from evil. If somebody turns away from evil through fear of hell, in the same way as a slave fears his master, then he progressively reaches the point of practicing good. In practicing it, he gradually reaches the hope of receiving a reward for his labor, like the wage laborer. When he persists in rejecting evil because of fear, as we said, like the slave, and from then on practices good through hope, like the wage laborer, and then perseveres in doing good through God's help, being united with him according to his progress, finally he tastes the sensation of real good and never wants to be separated from it. Who then shall separate him from the love of Christ, as the apostle said? He reaches the measure of a son, and loves because of good itself, and fears because he loves. This is the great and perfect fear. It is for this reason that the prophet, when instructing us about the difference between these two fears, said, "Come, you children, listen to me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord." Pay attention to every word of the prophet, and how each word has strength. First he says, "Come unto me," inviting us to virtue. Then he adds, "children." The saints call those who have been transfigured by their word from evil to virtue, children. As the apostle says, "My little children, for whom I have labored in birth, again until Christ is formed in you." After inviting us and urging us to that transfiguration, the prophet adds, "I will teach you the fear of the Lord." Can you see the saints' boldness? When we want to talk about something good, we always say, "Would you like to discuss this a little and reflect upon the fear of God, or any other virtue?" The saint did not do this, but with boldness he said, "Come, you children, hear me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord." What man is there that desires life, loving to see good days? Then, as if someone had answered, "I want it. Teach me how to live so as to have many days that I may see good." He teaches and said, "Keep your tongue from evil and your lips from speaking deceit." See how he checks the operation of evil through the fear of God? Keep your tongue from evil means not to hurt the conscience of your neighbor by some word, nor to slander or provoke someone. Your lips from speaking deceit means not to be deceitful towards your neighbor. Then he continues, "Turn away from evil." First he mentions certain sins, namely slander and deceit, and then he included all evil extensively by saying, "Depart from evil." Simply put, avoid all evil, depart from anything leading to sin. He did not say this and then fall silent, but he also added, "And do good." For there are people who do no evil, neither do they do good. There are people who do no one an injustice, but neither do they show mercy. Likewise, there are people who do not hate, but they do not love. Therefore, the prophet did well when he said, "Depart from evil and do good." See how he shows us the order of the three states that we mentioned earlier. We can see how, through the fear of God, we are led to avoid evil and are thus urged to ascend towards good. If somebody can manage to abstain from evil and flee from it, he will naturally do good, guided by the saints. When he explained all this, he went on to say, "Seek peace and pursue it." He did not simply say seek, but also pursue it, so that you might obtain it. Fix your noose on that saying and note the saint's precision. When a person manages to depart from evil and with God's help tries to do good, the enemy battles immediately begin. So he struggles, works hard, is exhausted, not only because he is afraid of turning back to evil, as we said regarding the slave, but, as we also said earlier, hopes to receive the reward of goodness like a waged laborer. While being attacked and fighting and contending with the enemy, he does good, but with much affliction and oppression. However, when he receives God's help and starts to get into the habit of doing good, then he sees relief. He gradually tastes peace. He then feels what the sorrow of battle is and what the joy and gladness of peace is. Therefore, he seeks peace, he strives for it, he runs to pursue it so that he can hold and take possession of it so as to make it completely his own, dwelling in him. What is more blessed than the soul that has become worthy to attain that state? The person that attains it, as we have said often, reaches the state of the Son. Therefore, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Who then can persuade that soul to do good for anything else other than good itself, other than spiritual enjoyment of good itself? Who has known that joy other than the person that has experienced it? Such a person has knowledge of perfect fear, as we have often said. We have heard what perfect fear according to the saints is, and what introductory fear of our own situation is, and where we have come from, and what we may attain through the fear of God. Now we must learn how the fear of God comes about, and understand what it is that separates us from the fear of God. The Father said that man obtains fear of God when he has remembrance of death and remembrance of hell, and when he searches himself every evening as to how he has spent the day, and again he searches himself every morning as to how he has spent the night. It is also when he does not act with undue boldness, but clings to a man that fears God. It is said that a certain brother asked an elder, "What shall I do, Father, in order to fear God?" The elder answered, "Go and cling to a man who fears God, and from the fact that he fears him, he will teach you to do likewise." We expel the fear of God from ourselves when we do the contrary. That is, when we have neither remembrance of death nor of hell. When we do not examine ourselves, we do not question ourselves as to how we spend our lives, but we live indifferently and keep company with those who are indifferent. Moreover, when we are unduly bold, this is the worst. This is a complete loss. Can we expel the fear of God from the soul more than boldness? This is why when Abba Agathon was asked about boldness, he said that it is like a burning heat which everyone flees from when it comes, and which destroys the fruit of the trees. Do you see, Father, the power of this passion? Do you see its wrath? When he was asked again about it, he said, "Yes, boldness is that bad. There is no passion worse than boldness. It is the mother of all passions." It was rightly said, with much understanding, that boldness is the mother of all passions, since it expels fear of God from the soul. If one departs from evil by the fear of the Lord, then certainly every passion exists where there is no fear of God. God delivers our souls from the destructive passion of boldness. Boldness is expressed in several ways. One can be bold through word, through touch, and through looks. Through boldness, one comes to talk idly, to discuss worldly things, to do ridiculous things, and to cause immodest laughter. Boldness is touching somebody when it is unnecessary, stretching out your hand to somebody in jest, pushing someone, or snatching something away from him, or looking at somebody brazenly. All these are the consequence of boldness. They are all consequence of the absence of fear of God within the soul. From this, one gradually reaches total disdain of God. It is for this reason that when God gave the commandments of the law, he said, "Make the sons of Israel devout," because without devotion one cannot honor even God, and one does not pay attention to any commandment. This is why nothing is more dreadful than boldness. This is why it is the mother of every passion, since it expels devotion and fear of God, and because it gives birth to contempt. You do not respect each other because you are unduly bold. You talk improperly and hurt each other. If one of you sees something that is not advantageous, he comes away, talks about it, and puts it in the heart of another brother. Therefore, not only is he harmed, but he harms his brother too, by putting this evil infection in his heart. Often he would have his noose on prayer or another good thing, and the other person would come along and give him something to prattle about. Thus, he not only hinders his advancement, but also tempts him. Nothing is more grave, nothing more destructive, than not only damaging oneself, but one's neighbor too. Let us therefore have devotion, brethren, in order to be afraid of harming ourselves and one another. Let us have devotion in order to honor each other, and not to shake our heads in dissent before the faces of others. This also, as one of the elders said, is a kind of boldness. If somebody happens to see his brother committing a sin, he should not scorn him and keep silence, leaving him to be lost. Nor should he revile and slander him. Rather, he should, with sympathy and with the fear of God, inform somebody who is able to correct him, or he should speak to him himself, with love and humility, saying, "Forgive me, my brother, since as a careless person myself, I see that perhaps we are not doing this too well." If he does not listen to him, he should talk to someone else who he trusts, his supervisor or his Abba, depending on the gravity of his mistake, and then forget about it. However, as we have said, he must have the intention of setting his brother straight, not of gossip, not of slander, nor yet of wanting to make an example of him, or to criticize or destroy him. He should not pretend that he intends to set him straight when he has no such intentions in his heart. Indeed, if somebody talks to his Abba without wanting the correction of his neighbor, or because he himself is scandalized, it is a sin. It is slander. He should search his heart carefully, and if he finds that he is motivated by this passion, he should not say anything. If he looks at himself with exactness, and finds that he wants to mention it from compassion and from a desire for his brother's betterment, yet he is still disturbed by some impassioned inner thoughts, He should declare all of this with humility to the Abba, both of his own thought and the desire for his brother's good. He should say that, "My conscience tells me that I want to speak for my brother's benefit, but I also feel that another thought is mixed up together with that within. I do not know. It could be because I had something against my brother, or possibly because some calumny wants to prevent me from saying it and bringing about his correction." The Abba will then tell him if he must or must not say it. Also, it sometimes happens that someone says this neither for his brother's benefit, nor because he might be led into sin, nor even because of a certain resentment, but simply from idle talk. But what is the need for such gossip? Often his brother learns of it and is disturbed and upset by it, yet more harm is done. However, we all know that when somebody mentions something solely for benefit, God does not allow the disturbance to arise. He does not let the distress and harm follow. Take care, as we said, to guard your tongue, so that no one speaks improperly to his neighbor, nor hurts somebody by word, deed, or gesture, or by any other means. Do not be easily irritated, so that if one of you hears words from his brother, he will not be agitated immediately, will not answer back, and then badly, or stay upset with him. All these things do not belong to those who struggle. They do not belong to those who seek salvation. Acquire the fear of God, but with devotion, so that when you meet each other, you each bow your head to your brother, as we said, each one humbling himself before God and before his brother, and cutting off his own will. It is indeed good if someone is doing something, yet gives way to his brother and gives preference to him. The person who is given way receives a greater reward than the other does. I have not known myself to do any good, but if I ever was protected, I was protected because I never put myself before my brother, but I always put him before me. When I was at the monastery of Abba Dorotheos for some time, the servant of the elder Abba John, the disciple of Abba Dorotheos, became sick, and the Abba allowed me to serve that elder. Indeed, I used to kiss the door of his cell from outside as one venerates the Holy Cross. Imagine how much more privileged I felt to serve him. Who would not wish to be deemed worthy to serve such a saint? He had a wonderful turn of phrase, and every day after completing my service, I bowed to him in order to receive a word from him and leave, and he always said something to me. The elder had 4 sayings, and as I mentioned, when I was about to leave each evening, he would always tell me one of the 4. He used to say, "More than anything else, my brother." It was the elder's custom to use that phrase with every adage, saying, "Let God preserve love more than anything else, my brother." He then added, "The fathers said, guarding your neighbor's conscience gives birth to humility." The next evening he said to me, "Let God preserve love more than anything else, my brother." The fathers said, "I have never put my will before that of my brother." Another day he said, "Let God preserve love more than anything else, my brother. Leave the things of the world and be saved." Again he said, "Let God preserve love more than anything else, my brother. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ." The elder always had one of these 4 exhortations when I left each evening, as though giving me some sort of provisions. Thus, I had all these to guard me throughout my whole life. However, despite the fact that I had such assurance with this holy man and was so well disposed to serving him, I went to the Abba and begged him, simply because I had the feeling that one of the brothers was upset, also wanting to serve him, saying, "Father, if you see fit, this brother ought to do this." However, neither the Abba nor the elder gave the blessing, but I myself did what I could to give my brother preference. While I stayed there for 9 years, I do not know that I spoke a rotten word to anyone, despite the fact that I had a service, so that no one thinks that I did not have the opportunities for such. And believe me, I know that a certain brother followed me from the hospital to the church, insulting me all the way. I walked in front of him without saying a single word. When the Abba learned of it, I do not know who told him. He wanted to discipline him, but I held on to his legs, saying, "No, for the love of the Lord, it was my mistake. What has my brother done?" Another brother, either out of temptation or simplicity, God knows, for some time used to make water over my pillow during the night, so that even my mattress was wet. Likewise, some other brothers used to come during the day and shake their rush mats in front of my cell, and I would see so many bed bugs coming into my cell that I would never be able to kill them all. They were endless because of the great heat. Therefore, when I went to sleep, they would all gather on top of me, but I used to fall asleep so quickly all the same because I had worked so hard. When I woke up, I used to find my body covered in bites all over. But I never said to any of them, "Do not do that," or "Why are you doing that?" As I said, I do not know that I myself said a word to hurt or sadden anybody. Teach yourselves to bear one another's burdens, and to respect each other, and if somebody hears words from someone which are unpleasant to him, or if he suffers something against his will, he should not get discouraged or irritated immediately. This is so that he will not be found faint-hearted, neglected, and weak in time of struggle, unable to accept any offense, like a melon that is touched by a small pebble gets marked and becomes rotten. Rather, you must have a strong heart that you might be slow to anger, so that your love of others can prevail in all things. If somebody has a service to fulfill, or if he wants to ask something of the gardener, or the cellarer, or the cook, or in one word, from anybody who does a service, he should take care, both the person asking and the person serving, to preserve above all the same state. He should and they should not turn away from any commandment of God, by never letting themselves get upset, nor having likes and dislikes, nor any kind of will or rights of their own. Whatever happens, great or small, disregard it and dismiss it. Indifference, of course, is a bad thing, but on the other hand, it is not good to give total attention to whatever happens to one and lose one's peace so the soul is harmed. Whatever you have to do, even if it is urgent and of great significance, should be done without contention or commotion. You should be fully aware that any work you will fulfill, whether it be great or small, as I said, is 1/8 of what is asked of us. However, to keep the same state, our inner peace, even when we fail in our service, is 4/8, or the half of it. Do you see the difference? Therefore, when you do something, if you want to make it perfect and whole, you must be careful to do it properly, that which is, as I said, 1/8 of it, and at the same time preserve your inner state unimpaired, which is 4/8 of it. If you are obliged to transgress that commandment, or you are harmed or you harm somebody else, it is not good to lose 4/8 while keeping 1/8 in order to fulfill your service. If you see someone doing this, you can be sure that such a person is not undertaking his service conscientiously. If he insists on disputing with others from vanity or from a desire to please others, just so that he can hear that nobody can beat him, he punishes himself and his neighbor. Good gracious me, what an achievement! This is not victory, brethren. This is damage. This is defeat. I say to you that when I send one of you to do whatever duty, and see some disturbance coming or any other harm, stop, and do not harm yourself or others. Put the work aside, leave it unfinished. Just do not bother each other, since, as I said, you will lose 4/8 in order to keep 1/8. This is obviously irrational. I am telling you this, not so that you become faint-hearted immediately and stop your work, or become indifferent and needlessly throw away material things and trample upon your conscience, because you want to live without care. Nor am I telling you this so that you disobey, and say, "I cannot fulfill that service, for it is detrimental to me." With this reasoning, you will not carry out any service, nor can you fulfill any of God's commandments. I am telling you this so that you give your whole strength to fulfilling all your services with love and humility, submitting to each other, honoring and comforting each other. Nothing is more powerful than humility. However, if one of you sees his neighbor or himself upset at some time, stop the work, withdraw and give way to each other. Do not persist, so that harm does not follow. It is better, as I have said 1,000 times, not to fulfill the duty as you want, but as needs be, and not obstinately or insisting on one's right, even when it is evident that it troubles you or upsets the others, and thus lose 4/8 of it. There is a great difference between the damage done. Sometimes it happens that somebody loses even the remaining 1/8 and ends up having done nothing. This is the result of disputes. Let us have this principle in all the jobs we do, doing them for our benefit. Where is the benefit when we are not humble before each other, but on the contrary trouble and upset one another? You know very well that in the sayings of the Fathers it is written that life or death depends on your neighbor. Each of you should always reflect on this, brethren, so as to exercise the sayings of the holy elders, so that you will hasten with love and the fear of God to seek the benefit of each other. Thus, with the help of God, you will be able to profit and make progress from anything that happens in your life. Our God himself, the lover of mankind, will grant us fear of him. Fear God and keep his commandments, because by this is for all men. To him belongs glory to the ages. Amen.